Okay, go ahead.
So, unfortunately, I've had three very close to death experiences. But the blessing in it is that I survived them and I am in a position where I can tell the story and help other people. So, um, one thing that is very prevalent in our family and in the Black community is hypertension, which is the silent killer. So I was 20 years old. I played four sports in high school. I was in shape, wasn't a drinker, wasn't a smoker. And it basically started out on, I think it was October of 2020. No, not 2020. What am I talking about? 2000, October 2000. And I would just get a small headache every day. And then in February, I got a headache that was like it was almost like someone had put my head in a drill press and they were just drilling into my skull. And that headache went on for, I got that headache in February. It would die down, but it would still, I still would not be able to turn my head from left to right. But it never went away. It was a constant throb on the side of my head. And then it was May 2001. I was in the bed, and you know how when you get a package and it's fragile and they have the plastic bubbles that people enjoy popping. I heard a pop like that in my ear,
Oh,
and the side of my head just started burning. And all I was doing was sleeping. And I was over a friend's house. And when I got to my mother's house, I would sit down and it was like I fell asleep. But if you could, it was almost like I lost consciousness. But if you call my name, I could still respond to you calling my name. I couldn't eat. Anytime I ate, it would come right back up. And my mom took me to the doctor the next day, and the doctor was like, "Nothing's wrong with you," and discharged me to go home. And the nurse was basically like, "I don't like how you're falling asleep, and I don't like how you can't keep your eyes open." So instead of sending me home, she actually took me down to the ER. And the ER doctor shined a light in my eye and he said, "Your discs are not sharp. So that means you have some kind of bleed on your brain." And they did testing, and then they found out that I had two brain aneurysms and one of them had ruptured.
oh my
And
God.
so the next day, I had to go through a full craniotomy. And basically, when an aneurysm ruptures, that is considered what's called a subarachnoid stroke, where the blood vessel actually ruptures and blood gets into between the space between your brain and your skull. So I got the surgery, and then I had every complication that could happen after the surgery I got. There were these things called vasospasms where my blood vessels would close, but they wouldn't open back up. So I was on a ventilator for probably 2 to 3 weeks. And so when I finally got off of the ventilator, I was partially paralyzed on my dominant side, on my left side. And actually, by the grace of God, I was able to gain my full health and strength and go back to school. I did have some memory issues. I had the primary thing I had was short-term memory issues. I actually had my personality completely changed. Um, but I was able to, it took a whole lot of work, but I was able to actually go to school and finish a couple of degrees. Um, Fast forward 16 years later, and I'm like, hey, I'm in my 30s. I think I want a kid. And so I went to see a high risk obstetrician because of the fact that I had the aneurysms previously. And he told me to go get a brain scan. And ironically, they found another aneurysm, same exact location, opposite side of my head. So in 2017, I had to have another craniotomy. This one was substantially different because it did not rupture. For this one, I literally had brain surgery on Friday, and Monday afternoon, I was sitting in a restaurant eating wings. The surgery has changed drastically over the last 20 years. That one, I was literally only out of work a month. I was back at work. It was a drastic difference between catching it and it not rupture and when it ruptures. The third scare that I had was, I've never been a diabetic. And then 2 weeks, no, it wasn't 2 weeks, it was a week. I took the second COVID vaccine. And then a week later, I ended up in the hospital in a diabetic coma. I had somehow or another, I ended up in diabetic ketoacidosis. So it was a combination of things because I had been doing intermittent fasting, and the combination of all three basically created a nightmare. Like I said, I was never a diabetic, but my blood sugar was at 800. And for the second time in my life, I had to end up on a ventilator again. And that actually did worse. That did more damage. My blood sugar being high had more impact on my memory and my brain than both of my brain surgeries did. So I tell you this story to tell you to be proactive about your health. And I live by the golden rule that I'm going to catch it before it catches me. So you might call it OCD, but I go to see every kind of doctor. I go to see a cardiologist. I go to see a neurologist. And it's not because I have to, but it's just because I want to be proactive. And unfortunately, that is something that our people are not, they don't do. Like our black people's, when they have illnesses, is more catastrophic, not because of what they have, but because of by the time they go to the doctor, there's nothing else that can be done to help them. You know, because we live through our 20s, we live through our 30s, and in your mind, you think you're going to live forever. So you don't look at your blood pressure. You don't look at your numbers. You don't go for your 6-month physicals. And then all of it catches up with you in your 40s, or sometimes unexpectedly in your 20s and your 30s. So that's pretty much the gist of everything that happened.
That's a lot of trauma in a little bit of time.
But I will say this, and I know you might find it hard to believe, I do not have an ache or a pain or any limitations or any disabilities at all.
That's awesome. What do you attribute that to?
The first thing I have to attribute it to is the fact that I had an army of prayers when I went both times. Like literally when I had the first surgery, like my family marched in the hospital praying. My name ended up on Christian Broadcast Network. And it was so funny because when I got out of the ICU, the nurse said to me, she said, you know, we love to see our patients leave, but in your case, we're glad that you can leave, but we hate to see you go, because apparently my family was feeding them. They got a couple nurses saved. And so at the top of the list, it would have to be the prayer and the spiritual aspect of it that got me through. The second part is I put in a lot of work. My memory was very, very bad. And literally, and like people would look at me weird because everywhere they see me, I would have a book in my hand, or I would have a laptop, or I would be on a computer. but I literally I put myself on a very strenuous brain and logic game regimen to help restore my brain. So like even now to this day, I've had I don't know if you've ever seen a commercial, but it's a website called Lumosity.com that gives you brain games. I've had a subscription to that for literally 20 years. And puzzles, hard logic games, all of those the thing about the brain is that in instances like that, you may not get it back to 100%, but you can do work and restore your brain.
Wow.
You just have it. I mean, it's not easy. And I mean, it kind of helped with me because I enjoy doing those things in the first place. So, but it takes, I mean, simple things can help your brain, like not taking the same way to work every day. Don't allow your mind to get redundant, because once that starts happening, it's just like the things that we take as making life simple now, it actually has a negative impact on your brain, like using MapQuest, like using, when reading maps, things of that nature, like even getting up at work instead of sending an instant message, and physically getting up, talking to people, all of that, any changes that you make, it's therapeutic for your brain.
I've always wondered if those brain game things actually work.
They do.
So I wondered if they work, but now that you're even saying it, I think that even like when I do like the not the puzzles, but the the ones where you have to circle and find the words and stuff like that, it
Yes.
it keeps me like it makes my brain like more responsive and stuff like that. So I guess I agree with you. And also the one that you go on is it's a specific one, right? That they give to you
It's
every
one. The reason why I like Lumosity, it's another one called Brainwell.
okay.
But the reason why I like Lumosity is because they give you an initial series of small tests that you have to take.
Okay.
And the things that were on those tests were the same things that they gave me when I had to do my neuropsych evaluations after having brain surgery.
Okay.
And their results were consistent with what my psych evals were. And what they would do is, after they find your weak areas, every day they just send you 5 games to play, and they track your performance on those games, so you can see where if your memory's getting better, your speed's getting better. So yeah, and that's the reason why I really like that one.
Yeah. So, and also the question about the third aneurysm that they had caught when your body was going into a keto state. You said, were you doing the actual keto?
No, the aneurysm did not happen when I went into the diabetic coma. The diabetic coma was last year. The aneurysm was 2017.
Okay.
So they weren't in the same thing. And the ironic part was the aneurysm that they removed in 2017 was there when the first one was there. But because I had a rupture, they only looked at one side of my head.
Okay. But the keto one, you were or you said were you dieting as well as
I wasn't doing the keto diet. I was doing intermittent fasting. But the thing, and that's why pretty much most doctors tell you to not do the keto diet, is because the keto diet is like a mild form of ketoacidosis. When you go through ketoacidosis, ketones get in your bloodstream. And if your ketone level is too high, your blood becomes acidic. So when you do the keto diet and you go into ketosis, your ketone level would probably be between 1 and 3. When you go into ketoacidosis, your ketone level is at 6, and you literally lose 2 pounds a day.
Mm, that's deep.
So, but they are the keto diet is the low end of it. Ketoacidosis is the high end.
Okay.
So if you're on the keto diet and you don't know that you're a diabetic, there
That's
you go.
fatal.
Right.
Wow.
And another thing about the keto diet is, like I said, when ketones, you can't do the keto diet long term. And over time, with the keto diet, even though you're losing weight, you are getting weaker. You won't have the same strength that you would have if you did a traditional diet and exercise. The keto, for some distinct reason, when you go do the keto diet, you get endurance, but you get weaker. Which is
So
why
can I ask
you
you,
should not do it for a long time.
so before you started your intermittent fasting, had you spoken to a doctor, or was it something that you did on your own?
Say that again.
When you were doing the intermittent fasting, was
Uh-huh.
that something that you talked to a doctor about? Or
No, I didn't talk to. The only thing I was doing was I wasn't eating breakfast. I wasn't doing like a 24-hour intermittent or a 12-hour intermittent. I just didn't eat breakfast. So I would stop eating at 8 p.m. and I wouldn't eat again until 12 p.m. But I was only skipping one meal. Now, I will say that I did play a part in it in a certain way. And the reason why I didn't make, I won't say I played a part, but I definitely did not make the situation better, because there were days when I would want to stay under my calorie count. So if I drank a soda, I wouldn't eat anything because I know the calories that were in the soda. So in doing that, all my body was getting was sugar, which made it even worse.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the mornings, basically you wasn't, you were at 8 p.m. You basically wasn't eating anything after 8, and you was not eating anything until 12. But
Right.
were you drinking anything like fluids and stuff of that nature,
No.
juices, or okay, so you wasn't basically
If I did drink anything, it would be a cup of coffee in the morning, but
okay.
I couldn't put anything in it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Okay. Oh wow.
but the reason, it's still up in the air, because my primary care physician said that he didn't think it was the vaccine. But then when they took I don't know if you guys are familiar with diabetes, but the way the diabetes is diagnosed is by something called your A1C number. When I was in the hospital, my A1C was 14. And 3 months later, after I got out of the hospital, my A1C was back down to 5.6. So the doctor was like, "You did a great job." He said, "But I've never seen an A1C drop that fast." So it literally dropped 9 points in 3 months. So it was,
Because of the intermittent fasting?
No, I wasn't fasting when it dropped. It dropped after I got out of the hospital.
Yeah, because she was in a hospital. She was in a hospital with the diabetic coma. Am I correct? You were in the hospital. Mm-hmm. You were in the hospital with the diabetic coma, and
right.
That's why the A1C went down.
Well, the A1C went down because after I got out of the hospital, I wasn't intermittent fasting anymore, and I cut my sugar.
Okay.
And I started, and that's when like the COVID restrictions were slowly lifting. So I was able to start going back to the gym again, because I had been on, and that's the sidebar. I had been on lockdown in my house for a whole year because I was high risk for COVID because of the aneurysms and the stroke. And So then I was able, after that, I was able to go back to the gym. But the thing about it was that I went to the hospital that morning. The diabetic coma in itself is not how I ended up on the ventilator. I ended up on the ventilator because I went to the hospital that morning and the doctor said there was nothing wrong with me. And they said they thought I was depressed because I had been in my house the whole time. So they sent me home with a blood sugar of 500 and a blood pressure of 160 over 115. And because my blood sugar was so high, so when your blood sugar gets high, your brain just stops working altogether. You can't think rationally, you can't remember anything. I don't remember anything that happened, but apparently I took almost a whole bottle of antidepressants and had 3 seizures. I don't remember any of it happening. And the doctor said it was because my blood sugar was so high, and it was because I was in ketoacidosis and the diabetic coma. So diabetes, I'll tell anybody, I mean, they're both bad, but diabetes is a monster in comparison, you know. Yeah, blood pressure you can have a stroke, you know, but like when I got out of the hospital being in a diabetic coma, I couldn't even remember my own cell phone number. That's how bad it affected my memory.
Was it anything else remember?
As far as what?
Like as far as like, you know, like family, was there like, did you
I
forget?
didn't. No, it was it was numeric stuff that I forgot, and my processing was a little off. But with me, the benefit that I had was that I had dealt with brain issues before, so I got on the same track that I got on to help myself when I had the aneurysms, and that pretty much got me back on track again. And I never took, the only time I took off from work was when I was in the hospital. Like literally, I got out of the hospital on a Thursday and I was back at work that Friday.
I find it I find it kind of ironic that you even lost your memory when it came down to numbers, because you're always working with numbers.
Well, numbers, it's a difference, because it's a difference when you're memorizing numbers and when you're processing numbers.
Okay, yeah.
So like if you gave me a phone number, I couldn't remember it right now. but if you gave me a calculus problem, I could tell you from beginning to end, you know. It uses a different area of the brain. So
Okay. Just like when you have a stroke, if you have a stroke on the right side of your brain, then the left side
that is correct.
Is what's affected.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm. So do you have any information about like any strokes or anything like that? You've never experienced having a stroke?
No, actually, aneurysm rupture, you have 2 types of strokes. You have the stroke that breaks the blood vessel, and you have the stroke that does not break the blood vessel.
Okay.
And your I forgot it. The ones that break the blood vessel is the subarachnoid stroke, which is the stroke where the blood ends up in the fluid between the brain and the skull. And then there's another one where the blood actually ends up within the vessels of the brain. So there's pretty much 3 types. You have the stroke that just causes the blockage in the brain. So when the blood can't flow, oxygen can't flow, and your brain is deprived. And then you have those that actually make the vessel rupture. Either way it goes, both of them are bad.
Right. As far as the diabetes, I know most people who find out they have diabetes, in the majority of the cases that I know of, it usually ends up being, you know, as a result of being so sick that they end up going to the emergency room.
Say that again, I couldn't hear you.
So most people that I know of that end up getting diagnosed with diabetes is not because they've gone to, they've had regular blood work done or whatever. It's because they've gotten so sick that they ended up in the emergency room and found out that they had diabetes.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like there's so much information out there um, about diabetes, but I don't know if it's that, people don't pay attention to their body, what their bodies are telling them, or,
Now,
it's just,
one thing that you do have to keep in mind is that one thing I do know is that I kind of had a precursor for diabetes, because even though I was not a diabetic, whenever I got my blood work done, it always said that I was insulin resistant. But because of the fact that I had a healthy diet and do they call you Chingy? Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And Chingy would I've always been an athlete. So, I would be in the gym 3 to 4 times a week. I would play softball. So because of me being active and me basically eating healthy, even though I was insulin resistant, I was not a diabetic. And then from the fact that being locked down from COVID, my exercising stopped. So I didn't have that balance anymore. So it was a whole lot of factors that played into it.
gotcha.
In a lot of instances, sometimes I know that in the past with doctors I've had to request my blood work be done for diabetes because they wouldn't just do it.
Right. That's one thing. I used to go to these meet the doctor uh, sessions that they would have in the community, and there was the one doctor who would come out. He would always say, you as the patient, you need to advocate for yourself. You need to keep track of, what you're feeling, what you're eating, what you're doing, and just basically keep track of your own symptoms and kind of do your own research and just be an informed patient when you get there. And it's not because doctors are poorly educated or just bad doctors. It's just like anybody else. They get overwhelmed, they get busy, stuff can end up being overlooked. So, that's one thing that we need to know is that, we need to arm ourselves whenever we go to the doctor.
Yeah, that's a true statement, because when you have to be your own advocate, because I know that when, like I told you before, the headache started in October of the prior year when I had the first aneurysm. And my mom literally was taking me to every doctor. And it was to the point where a week before the actual big rupture, she took me to another hospital, and they actually read my CAT scan wrong and sent me home. Because what basically happens, the distinctive characteristic, even though I did not have it with the second aneurysm because it didn't rupture, the distinctive characteristic of a brain aneurysm is the headache. It is like to the level that if I get a sinus headache right now, it doesn't even hurt. It's of no comparison. It's like a migraine times 1,000. So when I had my second surgery, I learned that the headache is the way it is. Every time you get that headache, that aneurysm actually has a small rupture. And that headache is your body trying to make it clot and stop the bleeding itself. So I literally got that headache 4 times within a 5-month span. And it's basically knowing your body, and you have to be your own advocate. They put me on allergy medicines. They put me in glasses. Like everybody was just misdiagnosing it. Now, if this happens now, I will tell you everything. I don't like the way that the cost of healthcare has went up, But having that surgery in 2017 and having that surgery in 2001 was completely like night and day, because the testing that they used to do to locate aneurysms, it literally felt like your entire head was on fire. The whole process was absolutely excruciating. It was zero pain the second time around. The process, even for example, when they clip an aneurysm, they do what's called a craniotomy, where they cut a piece of your skull out and they actually go in your brain and put a clip on it and they remove it. That process, they don't close your head up anymore until all the pressure is gone. The vasospasms, which were the things that were going on where my blood vessels would tighten up and they wouldn't loosen, there's actually a medication for that now that they give you before it ever happens. So there has been major, because back in the day, if you got a brain aneurysm, it was lights out. You know, it wasn't a lot of, but there are a lot more people surviving those now. And ironically, anybody can have a brain aneurysm. Like I still have and you can get an aneurysm anywhere there's a blood vessel. Like I have an aneurysm still that is in my neck. And I'm like, well, why don't you remove it? And they're like, 35% of the population has it. We just monitor yours because you have a history of ruptures. And brain aneurysm is not even the worst form of aneurysm that you can have. You can get an aneurysm on your heart. You can get an aneurysm on your aortic valve that goes into your intestines. Those are way worse than a brain aneurysm.
Wow, that's a lot of information about aneurysms. So, I mean, so there are aneurysms that are worse than just having a brain aneurysm.
Yeah, the brain, like I said, you can't, the aortic aneurysm can, so your aortic valve, it also runs down pretty much, and it supplies blood to your organs, like in your core area. So it provides blood to like the kidneys, the liver. You can get an aneurysm on that valve in the abdomen area, which is what Tommy from Martin, that's what he passed away from. He had a intestinal aneurysm, or the aneurysm can actually form literally on the aorta, right on the heart. Those two are pretty much catastrophic. If they're not caught and they rupture, it's no
life.
Correct.
Wow, that's pretty deep. That's pretty deep. But I mean, in the end, I mean, wow, you've got something to share. You've had a lot that you've been through that basically is you're a testimony to a lot of people who probably don't even know that, you know, these things could be happening on a regular basis. I know people all the time who get really bad headaches and they probably don't even look at it that way.
Yeah.
You know? So those
and
things.
if you and one thing I will say though is that if your there is a genetic marker on brain aneurysms. So if you go to the doctor and you tell them you have a genetic history, they can do a procedure called they can either do what's called an MRA or a CT scan without contrast, which allows them to look at the vessels in your body. And like I said, if you catch them before they rupture, you may not eat. The only reason they operated on the second one was because I had a history of ruptures. And there are other procedures that they can do to get rid of them where you won't have to have like your skull cut open. So, and I know that may sound bad. I know that sounds horrifying when you think about, oh my God, your skull got cut open. I would honestly say it's the easiest surgery you will ever have. There's zero pain involved.
So that is the one that they did with you. they had to go inside of your skull. Am I correct?
Yes, they did it on both. So I've literally had a craniotomy on both sides of my brain.
Okay, okay.
Do you mind if I ask where you went?
The first surgery was done at MCV. The second surgery was done at Georgetown. I'm a little biased with Georgetown. My neurosurgeon's name was Dr. Nair, and he actually travels the country teaching neurosurgeons how to operate on the brain without touching it. And I had my follow-up testing. I was down here because of COVID, because I couldn't go to DC. And even the neurosurgeon that was down here, I'm in the Hampton Roads area, he said he had never seen a craniotomy performed that perfectly before. So you guys, the further you go north, the better quality physicians and medical care you have.
Wow. So you, like you said, the further north, the better quality.
In my personal opinion.
In your personal opinion, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people would probably say that too.
So Keisha, my question is to you is, when you were having the headaches, were they basically in your frontal lobe?
It was all over.
Okay, so
it was like my head was in a drill press.
Okay. Was that a constant?
So it would be triggered by certain things, like I'll give you, like if you startled me or if the phone rung, it like certain things would trigger it. And basically it came from anything that, because I don't know if you realize it, but anything can spike your blood pressure. Your blood pressure can pop up and go right back down. Like when I go to the doctor, before I see the physician, my blood pressure is through the roof. Once I see the physician, it's right back down. So anything startling me at the time, it would cause it. And then what would happen, it never went away. It would turn into like, you know how if you burn yourself and it throbs?
Right.
It would feel like that all the time. But the key indicator was that it would completely tense up the muscles in your neck and you could not turn your head from side to side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good evening. Keisha, right?
Yes.
Thanks for coming on. This has been very helpful. My question is, what type of diet are you an advocate for, or is there one that you're like, listen, focus on these things, or what's your take on that?
It's not, you don't necessarily need a diet. All you need to do, and I'll give you a perfect example. So they did the testing at the beginning of March, but they did not do the surgery until the end of March. So during that time span, I was under close monitoring because it was there. And I said I wanted to lose some weight before the surgery. This is what I did. I stopped drinking anything but water. I did not eat after 7 p.m. No fried foods, and I ate a lot of vegetables. And I could not do anything that would increase my heart rate. So all I did was walk 3 times a day. I literally lost 21 pounds in 3 weeks. You don't have to put yourself on a diet. The thing that makes you gain weight is eating a lot of fatty foods. If you just take a month and not eat out, because the crazy part about it is there are things that, like if you go to a restaurant, I'll give you a perfect example. I used to go to Applebee's all the time and I ordered a salad. Come to find out, the salad that I would eat had the most calories than everything on the menu. Right. Salad dressing by itself was like 900 calories. Right. and you would never, so it's just about not eating late, getting your fruits, your vegetables, eating fish. Just don't eat like, and even with eating, I don't know if you guys eat pork or not, but even with eating like pork, eat lean meat, don't eat fatty meat. It's really not complicated to lose weight.
That's,
It's just, go
well,
ahead.
that's what yeah, actually I was, yeah, I wasn't going down that angle, but I'm glad you said that. Cause when I was saying diet, I didn't necessarily mean, cause I mean, we always say diet and you think about losing weight, but I just meant like, what do you eat now? Like this is my diet, not.
Well, one thing about me is all my whole entire life, I've been a vegetable fanatic. So like I have days where I literally eat salads for every meal.
Okay.
Like just eating leafy greens, vegetables, and I just love eating vegetables. So I eat a lot of vegetables.
Cool.
I can't think of the last time I ate pork. I don't eat like a whole lot of processed meats and processed stuff, it's just pretty much clean eating. One thing I will say though is if you put oatmeal in your diet,
Yes.
it helps tremendously with blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
It helps because it stabilizes your blood sugar. So you might get a slight increase when you first eat it, but because it takes the body so long to turn it into sugar, it stabilizes your blood sugar long term. It'll decrease cholesterol. It's high in fiber, so it's a good thing to eat for breakfast.
Yeah. I rocks with the steel cut oats in the morning. So and just last comment. Earlier you touched on a good spot about the brain games, because I'm an advocate for language learning because of what I think it does for your brain. Like you said, it keeps it active. It keeps you it keeps, I don't know the technical terms, but it keeps things generating right up in your right up in your brain. So when you said that, I thought about that because I saw some studies that were correlating like language learning with Alzheimer's and other ailments that deal with memory. So when you were talking about how you were like getting your memory strong through the process of let me think through this, let me use some logic and reasoning. So that's I do a thumbs up on that too. That's major.
And one thing that my neuropsychiatrist told me, and I know a lot of people hate it, but I thoroughly love math. I've been a math tutor for probably over 20 years. And when I actually went through therapy for after the first surgery, they did my therapy with a math book. And my neuropsychiatrist said that the reason why my brain healed at the level that it did was because my full-time job, I'm a mechanical engineer. So it was like every day was logic. So, not looking at the same thing all the time. And he said that played a big factor in my brain healing as well.
That's cool. That's
so
good.
tell your kids that doing math keeps their brain healthy. So they'll do it.
That's probably the only thing I probably disagree with. I hate it. Well, I'm only saying this because I hated math in school, but I like yeah. But
no, I'm sorry, Keisha. I still hate math. Okay, I do not.
Think about that, guys. I got a happy person in here.
Oh, good. No, I'm saying I know you love math and you're just excellent at it, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm not a math person. I can tell you that right now. That's why I don't do math. If I have to sit down and look at a video over and over and over again. I needed a math tutor in college So I don't deal with math. That's why I like writing stories and doing things like that. But you can have that math. You can add them numbers any day, but you know,
Oh, come on, man.
no, I'm not doing it. I don't play Sudoku, okay?
Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad because I hate reading. I was so glad when I got Audible, I didn't know what to do. I hate reading. I can't do it.
So I said, I ain't doing it. When it comes down to the math, even with my kids, and they like, Mom, I need you to help me with my math homework. I'm like, who can I call? Because this ain't gonna work. This not gonna work well. Let me go online and see if I can find the answer key or something. Because this ain't gonna work. I can't help you with this. Let me call somebody up real quick.
That's funny that you said that. I'm actually good at math, but I love numbers. I just love, and what's so funny, in school, I didn't like those theory questions, you know, when you lose 17 points because you didn't mention all the points of the War of 1812. And I used to be like, I don't think like you. So I'm gonna lose points because I don't think like you. It doesn't mean that mine is wrong. She was like, but you didn't mention, so I couldn't stand none of that. I wanted to, you know, I thought those were too many points to take off. But with math, it's like, it's either 182 or it's not. Like, it don't matter how you get there. And I would rock the numbers. So I like science and math and anything that had numbers. I loved it. But and I think I was in the 5th grade when my mother said, I can't help you no more with math. No, not math. She said, I can't help you with your homework no more. Because I used to come home and lean on her to help me. Like she was there all day with me. And she would be like, you got to get what you need. And she would say to me, she said, become friends with the smartest kids in your class. Get their phone number, and those are your friends. And get what you need. And she said, do not leave that classroom if you don't understand something. Do not come home and looking at me. And I took that true to heart. I became friends with a German guy, Asian people, the smartest kids. And I promise you, I was one of the 7th smartest kids in my school. It was 1,000 graduates. I was the top 7 because I became friends. I listened to that. And I would study with them. I was in the honors programs like the whole time. And I tutored other kids while I was in the classroom. But it was like, that's a real thing. But I think that, you know, when you think numbers are, you know, you can grasp it, you think everybody can grasp it, but we all look at things differently, you know. But I would say, that, you know, get what you need. Because when I got to college, I still needed a tutor. in some of them accounting classes I took, I was like, I need a tutor. And I was good at numbers, but it was more than numbers, you know, it was just like some other stuff. But yeah, it's a real thing. And I kind of always think that you're intimidated by it. So you just feel like you can't do it. And I always think you can do it, but we got to get past our mindset.
Yep.
You know,
like I tell my students all the time, and at the end of the day, when you do math, there's only 4 things you're going to do. You're either going to add, subtract, multiply, or divide.
Yeah.
Literally, that's all you do in no specific order, but that's all you do.
But which ones do you use later on in life?
All of them.
all of them.
Which ones you use?
All of them. And let me tell you, I didn't let my daughter buy stuff from the store if she couldn't tell me how much change she was going to get back.
You know what? That's my mom used to do that to me. And I was the same way you were. My mom helped me with my homework in the 4th grade and I got an F. And after that, every summer she sent me to somebody's math or engineering summer program. And that's how I got her.
Yeah, I was like, no, if you can't tell me the change in your head, then I'll be like, all right, if you want to use a calculator, because sometimes things was something off. And I remember one time I bought this jacket and it was from Macy's. It was like 40% off and then 25% off of that. And I calculated it and I told her it's $83.53. And so we got up to the register and they said like 100 and something. And I said, you're wrong. And they was like, what? And I said, this is how much it's supposed to be. And she looked and she called the manager over and the lady said, you're right. We didn't do the 25%. So when she calculated it, it was exactly what I had in my calculator. And my daughter looked at me. I said, this is why you need to do it for yourself, because you can't assume. I said, she don't even know, because she didn't even, they don't even add and subtract. You could see them. I was at the dollar store the other day, the struggle the girl had because the guy gave her change cash and she trying to figure out the change, and they sitting there trying to count the dimes and nickels and quarters together. She's struggling because most people probably just use a card, or if they give her cash, it says it up there, but they were sitting there struggling. And I was like, oh my God, but this is what it's come to. And now we're getting ready to go into an age where there's not going to be any cash at all. And nobody's going to have to count anything.
This is what they're leaning towards. So a cashless society, everything is used, you use cards for everything. So you have to be mindful that, everything is just going to be on everything's going to be
But that's horrible.
It's going to be electronic. But again, like we said, this was amazing. Nikki, you had an amazing story, and you got to share this with not just with everyone. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Whether it's a book, whether it's getting a podcast. I think you asked me about a podcast.
Yeah.
But I could definitely talk to you about that, and also Tisha, maybe possibly inviting her onto our podcast. That's what I wanted to find
Inviting
out.
who?
Keisha, the one who just told her story.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So one of my other biz sisters is on with me, who does the podcast with me, which is Tisha, the one who's just talking. So basically we're basically planning to look forward to inviting you onto our podcast so that you can tell your story and talk and get that word out, to be encouraging to a lot of other people and a lot of other individuals. You're a blessing. I mean, God has worked wonders. He has done miracles in your life, and you just have a great testimony. And, and I thank God for you even sharing sharing what you've been through. And because a lot of people don't want to talk about, their brain surgery and all that stuff. They don't want, they don't want to mention any of those things. But I just thank God for your humility and being able to share the information that you've given to us tonight so that we can, and be cognizant even of our own selves and some of the things that we go through. And sometimes when we have really bad headaches and when we're having all this tension, it could be transferring to our neck, whatever it may be, just being cognizant of some of these things that, we experience as well. So, and also being an advocate for ourselves when we got something going on with our body. We go to the doctor and we tell them what's going on with us. So,
Right.
I appreciate everything. I appreciate it all, and is there any other questions that you guys had for Nikki and Keisha?
You definitely have a testimony. And thank God that he spared you, that you were here to tell your story. I mean, I know my aunt's friend died from an aneurysm when I was probably a teenager. And I didn't know what an aneurysm was. I was like, what is that? And they were just saying like blood vessels in her head ruptured, and she didn't know anything. Like they didn't know she even had it, I don't think. So it's almost like one of those silent killers, if you will. But is there anything that people can do to prevent it? Or it's just something that just happens?
I'm not trying to be funny with this, don't do crack cocaine. And the reason why I say that, I'm not trying to be funny, but that's the first thing that they tested me for, because apparently if a person does crack cocaine or any synthetic drugs, it triples your chance of getting a brain aneurysm. And also, um, a blunt hit to the head can cause an aneurysm to form. Because originally I had been in a car accident like 6 months prior, and my head hit the window. And that's what they thought caused it. But after they did the angiogram and saw the location, they that's when they determined that they were all it was all genetic.
Ah, that's interesting that you said that. In fact, I think my neighbor across the street, the wife passed years ago, and she had an aneurysm. And but she didn't die from it. She had an aneurysm, but she lived, but she was never the same. Her speech wasn't any different, but it was just her words. You know, she wasn't able to go back to work or anything. And at the time, she was in school. She had stopped working, I think, and she was going back to school, even though she was an older woman. And at that point, she couldn't do anything. Like, she really, it was hard for her to just do functional things. Right. But I remember she used to bake, and she had, you know, grandkids, but she just really couldn't function anymore. Like, she couldn't drive anymore. She couldn't do much of anything, you know, her old activities. You know, so I would think it probably was severe, but, you know, it didn't kill her, thank God. But she wound up passing later, but she lived, you know, probably maybe 8 years. So I don't think she died from that. But it is definitely, I think our diet, and when I say diet, I just mean like what we eat, our diet and level of activity all play a role in our health. Definitely. And I think for any ailment, you know, and you can't, you know, prevent cancer and aneurysms and things of that nature, but I think that we'd be better for it if we were active and if we ate healthy on a regular basis. I mean, you know, you could eat other things occasionally, but if your regular day-to-day is healthy eating and you're active pretty much every day or several days a week, I think you have a much better chance of one, staying healthy, and two, getting through ailments if they do occur.
Yes.
Say that to be the case.
Yes, and another thing that you have to keep in mind of is that you need to make a conscious effort to make your body strong. Because and that was one thing that when I had my first surgery, because of the time that they were required to put me on the ventilator, my mom said the doctor came out and told her, let this be a lesson of how you should take care of your body, because if your daughter's body was not strong, she would be dead by now. So you have, there are numerous amounts of people out here who need surgery and can't have surgery because the way
they're too sick or too weak.
Their body can't even withstand the surgery that they need to fix them. So you go to, and I mean, it's in women, especially when you hit the age of 40. Me personally, I'm not a fan of it, but I do it because I have a naturally muscular body. But strength training for women over 40 is critical.
What? Oh, strength training. Yes.
Strength training is critical because you, and the reason why I say that is because when I got out of the hospital, well, when I came off of the ventilator from my first surgery, they told my mom it was going to take me 6 months to start walking and everything again. But because I was an avid athlete, I was literally walking in a week.
There you go.
They
Wow.
anticipated keeping me in the hospital another 3 months. They took me off of the ventilator on a Thursday. That following Saturday, I was going home.
That's awesome.
So you have to.
I agree with that.
You have to keep your, just
Body strong. Yes.
Your body is a temple. What you put in
Yes.
is what you're going to get out of it.
Yes.
And any illness you get, the first thing that fights it is your body.
Yeah. So you need it strong. I know when COVID hit, I started taking a whole bunch more vitamins and stuff. And that September, I got what is that called? Shingles, of all things.
God. Oh.
But let me tell you, it would stop me in my tracks. Like I would be walking and then I'd have to stop for like a minute or two because I was in a lot of pain. But that was the extent of it. And they said, because you're so active, because you work out, you have a very mild case. Because other people, I know someone who said she was in bed for like 3 weeks. She couldn't even get out the bed. And I was like, I was doing everything that I was doing before. It's just that I had this pain going on while I was doing it, but I fought through the pain. And I did the same thing when I had joint pain years ago, like really bad. And it was kind of chronic. And I was going to the doctors and they couldn't tell me what it was. They was like, wasn't sure if it was rheumatoid arthritis. They wasn't sure because it traveled. And they was like, it's not lupus, it's not this, it's not that, but they never knew what it was. And I went to physical therapy and they just had me like doing all this stuff, like trying to build my strength back. And eventually I started taking moringa. And that helped me tremendously. And now I take a turmeric and that helps as well with like inflammation and joint pain and stuff like that. So I know for a fact, you're right. Like the stronger you keep your body, healthy bodies, will be sick a lot less. And if they do get sick, it's not going to be as severe.
Yes. And one thing I will say to you guys, I guess the reason why I don't mind talking about this is because when this happened to me 20 years ago, and I'm being pretty open, is I went into, even after the surgery was over and I was back in stride again, I went into a deep state of depression for the unknown. Because I had no one to answer the questions that I had. So I am gladly in a position to, like, even now, I've had people reach out to me on Facebook. Hey, my relative is about to have aneurysm surgery. And it was an honor for me to get on the phone with somebody that was about to have that surgery, and all the unknowns that they had, I was able to answer, because I didn't have the luxury of, mine was so fast, I didn't have time to think about it beforehand. But after the fact, what's going to happen to me now? What is this going to do to me long term? Is this going to, I didn't have anybody to answer the questions that I had. So that I have no problem, with answering questions, because hopefully I'm helping someone.
No, that's I just have one last question. You actually kind of answered it before I even asked it. This is cool. But do you think, like you said, because of this process with the surgeries and aneurysms, and you being you're a mechanical engineer, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I know, and you're an athlete, so you already know. Sometimes they'll tell you, like, if you break a leg or something like that, it's a clean break and it'll come back stronger, which is weird, but that's how the body is. So do you think mentally, like, have you had like more like eureka or epiphanies, because of this, do you feel stronger mentally than before all of these things?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And I say yes when I am mentally strong. I mean, my life is very stressful even now, and it's just stressful. The reason I say no is because it gave me a dark outlook on certain things. And one thing that it did that I hate and I still can't get rid of is it made me look at reality before it happens. To give you a perfect example, I've had instances where I have been at family functions and even though a good time was going on, the thought crossed my mind, I have to watch everybody here, or we have to watch each other die. Like I literally think about death every day, and I have since I had that first surgery.
Well, let me say this. Let me say that about that. You're blessed though. You're blessed. You had to get touched on the hip, but because of that, you're helping so many more people. And like you said, that does not mean you'll never have these feelings and the things that you're dealing with. But greater than that is what you're doing going forward, man. And I would just encourage you to be like, you might have those moments, but the greater thing or the greater charge or the greater responsibility, the greater things are like right before you, man. So I'm encouraged by your testimony and by your strength. And I would say this too, because you're willing to admit, like, no, listen, I got times when I'm thinking about, because I'll be honest, and maybe a lot of people in here too. Now I haven't gone through that, but I do think about people around me like leaving. And like I anticipate that, what am I going to do when such and such passes? And so I got to leave that alone and continue. But those things, I think those things come because it's developmental time. You know, we got to keep getting stronger, keep going to the mental gym, as it were. But thank you for coming on. Really.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any more questions for Keisha? Again, like I said, this was a powerful testimony. And you know, you just being a vessel, being used by God, and Him allowing you to still be here so that you can share your testimony with others. Yes, I do believe that, you know, all that you have been through has strengthened you, and also, again, you know, allowed you to, you know, do exactly what He's calling you to do this very moment. So we thank you. We thank you for being a blessing to us, you know, and all those that are on the, you know, on Color Conversations, because, you know, we're able to go and help somebody else. You know, you're able to help others, and we're able to help them as well. We can go and basically tell somebody about what aneurysms may look like now. You know, if you know, dealing with some type of depression, anxiety, and all those different things as well too, you know, we can reach out to one another, you know, lend a hand to one another. Not just do that, but also call one another. You know, we're not too far away. You know, we're family. You know, we always can, you know, we don't have to wait until somebody dies to basically reach out to each other.
Right.
That's another thing. And you know, yes.
Keisha.
Hey, Nikki.
Keisha.
Hey. I know who it is, Keisha.
Hey,
Hey, honey.
how are you?
Good, good. Just want to say hi before I get off.
Okay.
Love you, miss you. Talk to you.
Hey,
I'll see you next, 2 weeks from now?
Yeah.
All right.
That's Tanny.
see
Yeah.
you, Tan.
See you. Hey, Nikki. Hey, Nikki. Hey, Trey and Tisha and Chingy.
Hey.
Hey. Hey. All right, guys. I'm gonna hang up.
All right.
So yeah, but long story short, like I said, Keisha, you're a blessing, honey. And like I said, we had to, I thank God for what he's putting in your spirit to do with our family as well. You know, just being able to share with us, because she's been doing a forum all week with our family about these issues and things of that nature. So I just thank God for that. You know, you're a blessing. So continue to keep doing what you're doing. Next week we have what is that? What is it, Keisha? Next week?
Diabetes.
Diabetes. Next week we're talking about diabetes with our family or whatnot. I'm going to just send a link out to the people on Color Conversations as well, just in case anybody would like to come on and get information. I know it's extended to our family, but this is my
No, please do. As a matter of fact, we have Sunday we have a heart-related illnesses with an actual PowerPoint that gives risk factors and the limits of what your blood pressure and your cholesterol should be. So I'll email that to you, and if you want to send that one out as well, you can do that also.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I can definitely do that. I'll definitely do that. So yeah, just in case anybody just wants some more information, or if anybody wants to wants to be enlightened in any way, shape, or form, so that you can share this information with others. And next week, like I said, she says Sunday, she's gonna have the PowerPoint and everything like that broken down. Just having more information, that she'll send me that information. I'll shoot it over to you guys if you guys want to come on Sunday. And she's also doing the next session about diabetes on Tuesday, Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right.
So yeah, so we'll definitely, like I said, and I'll send this information out to people because they need it. We all need it. We all need to.
We need to get on a mission
Yeah.
to stop being the race that has the most fatalities when it comes to any illness. And that's
Everything.
where we
Good
are
God.
right now.
Yes.
Yes, everything. I don't even know. I mean, some of it is genetic, but a lot of it is, some of it is not having access to healthcare. I mean, I know when I was out of work, I didn't have benefits and I didn't go to the doctor. And I'm one that goes all the time. But if we don't have access to care, we don't get care.
Yeah.
So certain people, when you have resources, when you first go in, the first thing they want to know is your insurance. Something ain't right. You ain't going back there.
Yeah.
Hold on. We got to make a phone call. Hold on. We got to check this out. If you ain't straight, you ain't going.
Yeah. And then they hit you with a bill. So, half of the time, we get hit with bills, but the reality is that, hey, if you got to get into the doctor, get into the doctor. If you got to find some type of resource that basically makes it where as though that doctor's bill get paid, do that as well. I know that I've shared this before. I know that every hospital and every bill basically has some type of fund that basically will pay that bill. So, we don't know that. You understand what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, sometimes, that's what the issue is. We're afraid to go to the hospital because we might get a bill. And the reality is that fear keeps us from going to get ourselves checked. So, sometimes we just have to do that. We just have to
wait until we're almost dying and then we go.
And we shouldn't have to go. We shouldn't have to wait until we're almost dying. Just go get ourselves checked, see what's going on. you know, I was like that too. I was like, look, I ain't going to no doctor. What you talking? Ain't nothing wrong with me. If it ain't broke, I ain't fixing it. So that's how I was. And I remember my husband was telling me, he was like, nah, you know, you 40, you just go ahead, get what you gotta get, colonoscopies, all them extra things, get it out the way. And I was just like thinking to myself, like, why? Like, what do I need to get there for? It's nothing wrong with me. So yeah, I got there, got everything squared away, did what I needed to do, and got to the bottom of it. I don't have to go back for another 15 years. But the reality is that I know my body. So if I know something is not going right with my body, then I'm going to go ahead and address it. That's
Right.
just what it is. If you know something is not right with your body and you feel it, because your body, just like Nikki was saying, when your body, the moment you get an infection, your body immediately starts to process fighting it. So we know when we get fevers, we know when we are not feeling well, we know when we're weak,
Mhm.
we know when we're all of these things. So the moment we start, start feeling these things is when we need to start to address what's going on with our bodies.
And waiting, you
Yeah.
find out it's
So
too late.
yeah,
People find out they're at stage 4 when you could have found out at stage 0.
yeah, yeah. But thank God, like I said, Nikki even shared all the information that she shared with us, even getting into the doctors and letting them know, listen, it's something wrong. You keep prescribing me different things. And I wanted to point out too, because Nikisha even pointed out, because they asked her about the usage of cocaine when when she went to the doctors or whatnot. And a lot of the drugs that they give to us are synthetic. So that's even a problem. That's even an issue. So a lot of the medications, there are medications that are not, they shouldn't even be going inside of our bodies, because there is another medication that needs to be prescribed along with that medicine, because it's not effective for our systems. So, it's just a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, yes, we have to be cognizant even of that, what they are prescribing to us, because they're sometimes you can just put a Band-Aid on something, and that's what it is, instead of really addressing what's actually going on with our body. So we have to be advocates for ourselves. We have to be
Right.
we got to advocate for what's going on with us. And sometimes, when you go into the doctor, you're like, look, I got a headache. I've been having one for the past couple of days. Well, take some sinus medicine, see how that works. No, I'm not doing that. So you have to advocate for yourself. So, because at the end of the day, a doctor they're going to ask you the questions, and it's not because they're not knowledgeable, just like Miss Lena had said earlier. It's not because they're not knowledgeable, but they don't know your body. You only know your body.
Right. That's why they call it a practice.
But it's wait, what can I add something to that too?
Go ahead.
Not only that, most of them, and this is just going back to the food point.
Yeah.
Most of them are not nutritionists. They didn't go to school. I mean, they went and studied, but they really put like 1 hour in as far as nutrition. So they're never really going to lean on that either. And like you said, you brought up a tricky situation that we have to, like you said, figure out for ourselves. We have to go to the doctor for things, but then you got to figure out, okay, no, you're not giving me this, or you're not pumping me up with that. So you need them and you don't need them. So that's you're trying to, like you said, and I like what you guys are saying too. You got to do some research on your own also, so that it's not like when you go to the mechanic and you don't know anything about your car. So everything they telling you, you're like, oh, for real? Yeah, we're gonna do this and fix that under there. And you're like, all right. And you have no idea. So, but that's the same thing we do sometimes when we go to the doctor. The doctor's throwing out stuff and we don't have good questions to ask him or her. And so, but yeah, that, like I said, that's a tricky thing. And add to it, like I said, the healthcare situation. So now people making decisions because they're like, well, feed my kids or, figure out what's going on with me. So it's just like a whole, like I said, that's why we need prayer and wisdom to, oh Lord, show me how to go about this. Because it's not black and white, man. It can be tricky at times.
Yeah, exactly. And because we always be trying, like I said, I'm that type of person. Listen, I remember I cut my finger in on a dish inside of the sink. I was just washing dishes, and it was a glass that was broke, and I had no idea. So I stuck my hand down there, washed the dishes, cut my finger from my fingernail all the way to like my my bone or whatever the situation was. And I was sitting at home wrapping it up with some paper
No,
towels.
wait, real quick to that point. A month, no, 2 months ago, I'm not gonna get into how it happened, but I ran my face into, like, when you guys go to Walmart and in the back where you pick up deliveries and they got the sign with the numbers, I ran into that.
No,
Right,
no,
my
no,
face.
Trey. No, Trey. You got to explain how you did that.
No, we do that on another conversation. I'm trying to get to a different point. So I run into it. So, I got a little cut. And so just like Latrice was saying, I'm thinking like, man, nah. But it was a woman out there that works out there with us. And she kept badgering me for like 2 weeks. Every time she saw me, did you go get a tetanus shot? I'm like, nah, man, I'm good. But I'm glad she kept saying that, because it got me to thinking. And so one day I said, you know what, Trey, go do that, man. Because I'm trying to think like, no, I know I had one 10 years, and it was like on the edge, but it was just like, yo, kill all doubt. Go do that, preventative, because say you did get it, or you did have, tetanus, but now you got the shot. So go do what you need to do. So that was a situation where, like you guys were saying, or like Nikisha was saying, she wished before she had someone to like talk through these things with. And that is very important, to have people in your ear to lift you up, encourage you, push you when you're like, nah, I don't need to do it. So yeah, but I wasn't going to go, but it just she kept doing it. And I was like, man, this is some wisdom coming out of her mouth. I need to listen. And it's funny. Sometimes it's not like you want to go, but it's like, okay, I need to go. So no, I thought about that when you wrapping up your finger.
I wasn't going either.
I know you wasn't.
I kept wrapping it with some
Hand would have blew up like a balloon.
So wait a minute. I kept wrapping it with some paper towels, and then the blood just kept coming through. And I said, you know what? Who was it? I think it was my mom. And the kids, basically, I just said, Mom, just can you come down and get the kids? I got to go to the hospital, because at that time you wasn't allowed to go. You wasn't allowed to take the kids or anybody to the hospital. So basically, I'm like, listen, I'm gonna just go over to the hospital. I think it's bad, but I don't think it's that bad. I get over there. They said, listen, you're gonna need some stitches. I'm like, stitches? What you mean? But the reality is that, yeah, we just gotta do what we have to do. We have to check on ourselves. And sometimes we could be a little, bullheaded and proud and be like, oh, well, I'm good, But the reality is that know your body. Know your body. Know when your body's not good. Because your body will tell you when it's not good. Your body will actually tell you when you need rest. Your body will tell you when you need to slow down. Your body will tell you all of these different things. So those are things that we just have to recognize within ourselves. And we're people that like to go and like to do and like to get it all done. But the reality is that even Jesus rested. So we need rest. Sometimes we just have to just slow down. I was in here mopping floors every single day, because I always thought that
you're a super goer, the Latrice.
Listen, and I said, you know what? One day I looked at them floors and they was dirty, and I said, they're gonna stay dirty. They're gonna stay dirty. That's what they're gonna do, because I'm not gonna mop them floors every single night. I have children, and I have to take in consideration that my floors are not that freaking dirty, because I've been bleaching them every single day for almost 20 years. So the reality is that they ain't that dirty. So, and that's just how I had to start looking at it, So again, like I said, being mindful and cognizant of stressing yourself out just to try to get some things done. That's another thing. Anxiety. Nikki even talked about depression, just being able to connect with others so that you can get out of that state of mind, because sometimes it's just things that overtake our minds and we sit alone in that. And that can basically, we can internalize those things, and we don't want to do that. We want to be able to have family. We want to be able to communicate with people. You know what? I'm not feeling good today. I just need somebody to talk to. And sometimes we just need someone to listen, not someone to respond. So, that's part of communication as well, so it's just a lot of different things that we're learning about ourselves and learning about one another, and being able to just connect with each other, not just in fellowship, but in love and in community. So, that's the main thing. And like I said, whenever we need someone to hold a conversation with, we're here. Just somebody to be an open ear for you, and or just to be able to hear what you have to say, because sometimes you might need to vent. These are some things that we just we can connect with, and we can connect with one another. So we go from there. But Nikki, like I said, you are a blessing to us, and we appreciate you being on here. We appreciate your humility. We appreciate all that God is doing in your life. And it gives us also an appreciation to not take things for granted. And that is life itself, and also the people that God put in our lives. So I just thank you, Nikki. And that's all I have for Color Conversations. If nobody else has anything else for her, we're gonna hop off. But again, like I said, Nikisha, I'm gonna be sharing all of this information and sharing this. The video will go to you. The video will go to all the people that are on here that were a part of it, and they'll get to share it with others. So this video is not going to be silent. And I think that that's the way it needs to be at this point, if that's all right. So
You already put her government name out there, so you know what I mean? So
right. Nikisha. No, so yes, if there's not anything else, Trey, you could pray this out and we can get ready to get out of here. Hold on. All right, guys. Trey, you want to pray?
are you ready? All
Yeah.
right. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Thank you, mighty King. We thank you for this color conversation this evening. We thank you for allowing our sister to come on and share her testimony, a mighty testimony, Lord, of your faithfulness. Lord, we thank God for the information, and we ask that you just continue to strengthen her and encourage her. Lord, in the moments where she feels dark or feels hope, Lord, remind her of what you've brought her through and where you are taking her. Lord, we understand that opposition a lot of times just means you're doing things that you need to do. So we just asking for more strength, more grace, more mercy, Lord, as she continues to touch other lives. There's somebody that needs to hear this, that if it wasn't for Nikki, they would not have heard it. So we thank God for that blessing. We thank God for that assignment. We thank God for everybody on here tonight, Lord. Just continue to give us wisdom, Lord. Help us to be advocates for our bodies, for our minds, for whatever is going on in our lives. We just ask, Lord, that you give us sweet rest tonight, Lord. And if we're allowed to rise in the morning, Lord, help us to represent you once more. We ask these things in your precious name. Amen.
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 Amen.